Welcome back to Drones in America by MarketScale. I'm your host, Grant Giat, and I'm the Unmanned Aircraft Systems team leader and a partner at the law firm of Adams & Reese. Today, I'm joined by a very well-known name in the industry, Romeo Durscher, who, of course, we recognize from his excellent work with DJI, but he's got a very exciting new gig to talk about today. So I'm eager to get in that with him. I'll let him tell you all about it. So without further ado, Romeo, welcome to the program.
Grant, thank you so much. It's been a while since we were last together in a forum. I think it's been a little bit over 6 months. Amazing how time flies. And so much has happened in those last 6 months, including I am at a new home. I joined the Altarian team, and this was such a fantastic opportunity, something that allowed me to go back to my roots, to work on that vision I had several years ago that, we got to do something differently in order to really allow for enterprise customers to scale up. And Altarian was just the perfect choice and my perfect new home. And it's been a whirlwind of a few months. I am still learning a lot. And in fact, Grant, I had to come to the humble realization that I really don't know that much about the industry than I thought I had. Because for 6 years I had been under this umbrella, and I knew that umbrella. I knew everything under that umbrella. But what I didn't know was the big open world outside of that umbrella. And I stepped out of that umbrella and I was like, wow, holy cow. Where have I been that I don't know all these things? So It gave me so much more like motivation and excitement, and also a little bit nervousness because, suddenly you go into this unknown area, but it's been super exciting.
Well, that's fantastic. And let me just say, you don't need to be humble about it because I feel the same way. This industry is changing so much, it feels like. And I'm not necessarily talking about regulations. I'm talking about what's going on behind the scenes with private industries doing and the advancements that the private industry is making. It seems the further in we get with this technology, the more widespread the uses are for how this can help humanity, as well as increase, efficiency of data flow and integration of different technology into how we capture data. It's almost like a new way of rethinking how you're going to capture data and really streamline operations. And that's one thing that Altarian is really excels at, is this concept of taking data and almost treating it, I've heard you use the analogy of the oil industry, like putting it in the pipeline, and this is the oil. So Altarian does a great job with that. So talk a little bit about that analogy, because that resonated with me as someone who lives along the Gulf Coast, and the oil industry, of course, is very important down here. So tell me about this metaphor, because I found it very intriguing.
The idea is, I'm out with a shovel and I'm digging for oil, and suddenly, I find this well, and this oil is just coming out of the ground, and it's, this beautiful waterfall of oil that just comes down on me, and that represents the data that you are collecting with the drone. Both at this stage are fairly, useless in a way. Because you got to process that data and you got to process that oil. So what do you need? You need a pipeline. You need to get the oil from the well to the refinery, to the place where it can be turned into something that then becomes more usable. And that is the data pipeline. So you're taking imagery with the drone. And something that I've been saying for a while now is that we in the drone industry, we got to get away from the SD card. The near death of the SD card, I call it. And I call it the near death because it's a fantastic tool to back up data, to have a second copy of the images you collected in the survey, but it cannot be your sole source of stored data.
Right.
Because then, and this sounds really harsh, you are only a glorified wedding photographer. And that cannot be enterprise. Enterprise, in order to scale up, you really need to have a properly integrated data workflow. And that represents the oil, the pipeline, the refinery that then provides a product that you can either use or further go into the next process to create something out of it. And that's the analogy that I've come up with. And it's really only possible at Auterion because, we invest in a single open platform on the software as well as on the integration side that allows and enables us to work with a whole range of equipment manufacturers and payload manufacturers. And because it's all on an open standard, it's integrated, it's easy to pick and choose. And so ultimately, Auterion is really the only viable choice for an enterprise customer who's looking to replace an entire fleet, because that's right now one of the biggest challenges. We know that there's no one drone that fits all the needs. And most entities, from public safety to inspection, utilities, they have multiple sized aircraft for multiple types of missions.
Right.
And there's also no secret that my former company is the leading entity in all of this. And some entities right now are not able to utilize DJI anymore. And so they need a new fleet. They need a small platform, a medium-sized platform, a larger platform, and maybe even a VTOL. And that is the premise of what we're trying to achieve, that we have multiple manufacturers with multiple drone platforms, with multiple sensor integration that now all can work on this data pipeline, fully nicely integrated, one standard, one user interface. So switching between a small quadcopter to a larger heavy lift platform to even a VTOL, a vertical takeoff and landing platform, it's all seamlessly integrated. And to me, that is like mind-blowing that we have reached that point where this can happen.
I agree. And I'll say the analogy you brought up with the oil flow and how you have to streamline everything, which is very clever. It kind of also, you could say the same about the drone industry, I would say, because we are at this point where DJI, people made such great progress with drone use because of DJI and how those drones were able to really show the array of uses there are for this technology. And once we moved into type certification, which we're kind of in the midst right now, there was a greater call by the federal government for different types of manufactured drones. So we're all kind of going towards the same place, it feels like. There's different moving parts, but there is a certain path. And so what you're saying really resonates with me, because this whole issue with fleet, replacing a fleet, having one fleet, but yet needing different drones for different tasks, this is a very real issue that I'm seeing in various companies, because not everyone uses a drone just for one particular case or even one particular category of a case. What you could use a VTOL for, as you mentioned, could drastically differ from what you would use a smaller drone for. And sometimes you need both. And it's not an issue of, wanting to really deal with multiple companies or multiple situations, but to be able to have a unified source. So that's really interesting, that concept you brought up. Now, I want to talk a little bit about public safety and how your work at Auterion is playing into the great history you have with public safety and what you've done for drone use in public safety.
Yeah, so I see three areas there. And yeah, you summarized this so well, Grant. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We have come very long ways thanks to DJI and thanks to all the work that was done. And we have to admit that, and we have to also be thankful for that. We're having conversations today in such a young industry that are far more advanced than if DJI had not been here. And that deserves a lot of recognition. But we've also come to a point where we have entities from public safety departments to commercial entities that have 50, 100, 200 drones. And now it becomes a real challenge to scale up, because if you have to do just firmware updates on 50 drones in an unstandardized approach, that poor soul is going to spend hours in the basement trying to update all the firmwares. And that cannot be the way we go about it in enterprise. So on the public safety side, I see so much potential for what we're doing at Aterian. First of all, public safety is very standardized, very trained. Every single move of a firefighter or a search and rescue person or a law enforcement officer, it's trained. It's second nature. Yet, when it comes to drones, you have different drones. These drones use different apps. You have a smaller DJI drone maybe, and you have an app, and then you have a slightly larger one, and you have a different app. You have a larger one, and you have yet again a different app. Those apps all look differently, have different functions in different places. Just training for that is somewhat of a nightmare. And if we now go to the open standard where we make one user interface that works with any of those drones, the user experience, the feel is exactly the same if you're going from one to the other. You are already standardizing your deployment and operation, and therefore you're reducing the amount of training each and everyone needs to have in order to understand what to do. So that's one big aspect. Then I mentioned VTOL. The VTOL concept has been around for some time, and I've been dying to dive into it. In fact, I was working on a VTOL project in 2016, hoping it would come to market in 17. Unfortunately, it got shelved at the time. And I was very disappointed because I truly believe that the company that comes out with a VTOL platform that is versatile, that has multiple payloads that can be exchanged, that is easy to operate, and in a cost-effective range will own the market for a long time too, because there are so many advantages for public safety aspect, like a hazardous material incident where there are gases leaking out. This could be 6-8 hour work of recovery work. Having a drone at 400 feet AGL, just doing a big circle and keeping overall situational awareness of the scene, while the smaller drones are flying much closer to the ground and doing the nitty-gritty tasks. That layered approach, that is a completely different methodology of drone deployments. And I want that validated. And so I'm super excited that I get to work with VTOL. So we have the standardization, we have a new platform that we will be introducing into public safety. And then we have that big piece, that data pipeline, that oil pipeline, where public safety loves to have that live video feed. That to them is tremendously helpful. Having that live video feed right at the scene allows for quicker, better, faster decisions, but also having that live video feed at the command center that is far away, or at the fire station, or other units that are inbound. That's exactly what is so valuable. And then having the data just go into your own workflow. Maybe you are using an incident command management software piece where the drone data just integrates right into that one. Or you are doing a mapping mission, and instead of offloading the data from the SD card, if it goes straight into your Esri or into your Pix4D and gets already started with the processing, and you never touch the data. I mean, that is like a dream come true.
Right. It truly is. And you bring up a really good point about not having all your data. I liked how you described it with the SD card. And although we've been able to do great things with the SD cards, like other forms of technology and accompanying equipment, it's time to adapt. And so this workflow is a very interesting concept. And since I've been in the industry, the one thing that I've heard time and time again that almost everyone is on the same page about is the oil of this industry is data. Data is the absolute most valuable thing that drones are able to provide. So being able to find a way to effectively process that data and put it in a mechanism that is user-friendly and scalable is huge. And, kudos to Aterian for doing that. And I think it's fantastic they brought you aboard. I'm sure they knew what they were getting. I'm sure they saw that you were a huge name in the industry and how much experience you'd have with public safety. Are you still in the same city or did you relocate?
Yes, no, I'm still in San Jose. Obviously, right now with COVID still being a very, very big part of our lives, things, are almost, a little different than before. I used to be on the road all the time. However, I am actually right now in Switzerland, and I just got here yesterday. I am traveling a little bit more, and that allows me to do the end user engagement piece a little bit more, and also bring the knowledge to the team. This is a fantastic team. We have a headquarters here in Switzerland and one in Moore Park, California. So we have two locations, and right now I'm going to be spending some time here in Switzerland to work with part of the R&D team and to also give them more background on what it is that public safety needs and how we can adjust and cater to those needs in a way that really nobody in the industry right. What we do with Aterian is so very different. And every time I explain it to people, I can see when the light switch goes on, and it's a fantastic feeling. But think of it this way: while we are a software company, there is one piece of hardware that we do provide, and that is called Skynote. And Skynote, in essence, is the brain of the drone. It's the flight controller, a mission computer, and a connectivity device in one. And that flight controller is the Pixhawk flight controller for enterprise, and has millions of hours of flight experience behind it. There's a huge developer team because it's on the open source that can quickly also review codes and adjust codes. It's a very, very powerful flight controller that now is paired with that mission computer and that connectivity device, that the LTE, 4G, 5G device. And now a drone manufacturer can use that brain, in essence, and start building the drone around it. And that allows the manufacturer to go to market much quicker because they don't have to reinvent the flight controller and the whole software stack, the payload manager that's integrated, the connectivity device for the radio, that's all part of it. And then, of course, the data pipeline in the background. So developers create now these very powerful drones with this really amazing brain in it. We get to market faster, and therefore the choices increase dramatically over the next several months because more and more of these new Aterian powered drones are coming to market. And it's really fascinating to see that a software company that provides, in essence, one piece of hardware is changing the entire industry.
No, that it is changing the entire industry. And the things that you're discussing the various components that go into building not only a scalable product, but a scalable program. And being able to kind of harness all that and put it in one platform is great. And I'm very curious to see what Aterian does, not only in the United States, but worldwide, because I think this concept of standardized workflow and collection of data is something that is going to be of utmost interest to end user industries across the world. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think in the United States, we're ahead of the curve. We have learned a lot in the last few years. We have some very early adopters that have realized that, listen, the hardware will continue to improve, but for us, the real importance is in the data. And we're seeing that kind of realization come to life in other parts of the world too. So this is not just something that we are experiencing. This is really something where everyone around the globe will benefit. And I mean, the best example is your smart device. You know, in back in the days, if we go back 13 years, and I say 13 years because today I was reminded that I joined Twitter 13 years ago, and I joined Twitter on a regular non-smartphone at the time, and moved to a BlackBerry, which was already much more smarter than your previous version. And today we have full data integration. I take a picture and I set it so up that it goes into my cloud, and I can now then pick up my iPad or go onto Lightroom or Photoshop on my laptop and access that image. We're already doing all of these things. So it's not like we're reinventing something for the drones. We're just using that same concept of, you know, Apple is DJI and Auterion is the Android version of smartphones.
Right.
And that makes so much sense.
Right. No, I agree. It's absolutely fantastic. And it's interesting, you know, getting those reminders. I got one from, I think Facebook recently saying it was my anniversary. So it's, you know, the good thing about social media is I feel like there's always a time capsule there. Now, some people have a problem with that, but it does store your information. And I personally love these, Facebook has these things called, I think, time hops or something. It shows you like your posts from like a year ago or even 10 years ago. And so, you know, it's great. And what's going to be interesting to see is how drones are kind of incorporated into this world of technology that we now, it's second nature to us to use Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all the popular sites that I could go on. And I think, you know, phones, same thing. It's commonplace to have a smartphone now. And so I'm eager to see the day when drones are kind of on that same level. You know, I don't know if they're more like phones or cars, but it'll truly be interesting. And when we're talking about ubiquitous and drones becoming ubiquitous, few people have played, you know, as great a role as you have. So thanks again for everything you did with DJI. I look forward to seeing what you and Auterion do. I think we're going to be hearing a lot more out of you, a lot more out of the company, and I'm excited to see what you guys have in store for the future. So thanks for coming on the program. I look very much forward to seeing you again in the future. Yeah,
thank you, Grant. And it's been a privilege. This summer, I will celebrate my 10th year working with drones, and it is remarkable what we have achieved in 10 years. You know, this is a very disruptive technology, and you know that, Grant. I mean, we're facing so many challenges, from regulatory environments to public perception to, you know, bad guys utilizing drones for things that we never intended for them to do. So this is a very complex issue, yet 10 years into it, and if we just look at the enterprise, the commercial side, you know, good 4 or 5 years into it, we have done a tremendous job as an industry.
We have. I would say the past year alone has seen some significant progress, but you are right. I mean, this industry has progressed. And for an aviation-based industry, I would say things are moving perhaps quicker than people think. Would you say that's fair to say?
Yes, especially if you're taking into consideration that, you know, we're working with a federal entity here in the United States, the FAA. You know, federal government usually is very, very slow, but the FAA has adapted to certain items fairly quick. And then, you know, it had been a little bit of a slow going now, but now with remote ID and now the changes to 107, and you know, we're getting to those places, and that is actually very, very fast moving. And so it is exciting. And, you know, we got to recognize that, of course, we all want things to happen quicker and faster and go to market sooner. But we also have to recognize that this is a technology that operates in 3D space around crewed aircraft, potentially, you know, over areas of sensitivity if you have the proper approval for it. And so this is not just a phone or a gaming console. this is really some really big thing we have created, and the progress we've made. I'm sometimes blown away when I look back, especially when those Facebook memories come up and I see what we did, 5 years, 7 years ago. And it's a different world right now. And it's like you mentioned in the beginning, it's also difficult to keep up with everything. So you contribute with your podcast to help others understand, learn something new, hear a different perspective, which helps everyone in the industry. So this is not just, Romeo has done all these great things. This is really a collective of people that have come together to, in essence, help standardize the entire approach, the way we educate, the way we understand. And that has really also allowed us to drive forward much faster than what we probably thought would happen.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, and I agree. It's definitely been a team effort. And in a time in our country that we see, for better or for worse, so much division, it's great to know that in this industry, there are people from all different backgrounds that are working together to do something positive for the country and for humanity. Because this technology is not only game-changing, industry-changing, it can be life-changing as well, as you know. And so it's just, it's fantastic to be a part of something that is going to have a lasting impact on the public good. And so again, Romeo, thank you again for joining. I look forward to having you back. Hopefully I'll see you at some conferences in the coming months, coming years. We're all about to start traveling some more, hopefully. So we'll get to actually shake hands and maybe get a drink or something. It'll be nice to be able to do that. So thank you again for being here, and best of luck on everything. I look forward to talking to you soon.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Grant. Be safe.
You too. Please join us next week for the next episode of Drones in America by MarketScale.